everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein, president of Life West, with my significant other, my better half, actually, Dr. Mary Oberstein. And welcome to Life by Life West. We've got a really special guest with us today. He's been at the school a few times recently. He's just a phenomenal doctor, but more than that, he's a phenomenal person who I think can give us so much good information today. His name is Dr. Matt Delgado. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hello, thank you.
Dr. Matt is a 2016 graduate of Life West. After he graduated, he went to Nebraska to do an associateship. And after 3 months in that associateship, he had a health crisis that took him out for a year, ended up in Austin, Texas, which hopefully we'll talk about today, Matt. Ended up in Austin, Texas a year later, and has a booming practice with an associate and independent contractors, and just doing amazing things in his community. So we do want you to share all about that, and we're very excited to have you on the show. So welcome to Life by Life West.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction.
You got it.
So we're going to jump right in with you, Matt.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with your journey, and just, it sounds like it wasn't smooth. So we want to hear the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, sure. It's funny. I remember in chiropractic school when everyone had like this story, and I was searching for mine. I didn't have it yet. And I didn't hope at the time it would come in the package that it did. But now in retrospect, I see it as a good thing. But like Dr. Ron said, I went to Nebraska for 3 months. It was supposed to be 2 years as an associate, but just 3 months in, from burnout and stress, it really amplified my health in a negative way, the direction I was already going. So diagnosed formally with Graves' disease and autoimmune thyroid disease. And from that moment, I decided I was going to quit my job, remove the biggest stressor there, and just take time to recover my health. So I did. It took me a year and a half to send this into remission, but after about a year, I felt like I got my energy back enough to really step foot back into practice. I was going to step back in as an associate. That's another long story, but through somebody believing in me enough, I took their advice and just took a chance and started my own with a $2,000 loan. I opened up in a little curtained space, just big enough for a table within someone else's office. And then I brought in an independent contractor first into another little curtain space right down the hall from me, right next to a bathroom. He was always complaining because the toilet was flushing. And then we moved into the beautiful space that I'm in right now. That it was about a year and a half in, been here ever since. And it has not been easy. It's definitely been a struggle. It always is. There's always ups and downs, but I've learned a ton. And I think most importantly, I've really enjoyed it.
Well, we do want you to drop some of those pearls of wisdom that you have learned, obviously. But I just want to kind of go back to what when Dr. Mary talked about your journey not being easy, obviously, right? And I'm glad, we're glad that you're recovered, and we're constantly recovering. Our body is always adapting, as we know chiropractically. But what happened, like those negative thoughts that had to creep in? Because I think it's important for practitioners to know that it's not a rosy road sometimes, and these negative thoughts can creep in. And how did you handle those demons? When the mind over here saying this, and then the mind over here saying that. What was it like for you?
Yeah, great question. I think if it weren't for a close friend that I was staying with, and it was cool. We ended up graduating in the same pod. She moved to Nebraska, about 45 minutes away. I was in Omaha. She was in Lincoln. So she came to the rescue. I had literally $200 in my name. I'm breaking my lease and nowhere to go. And I threw all my stuff in my little beater car, and she comes to the rescue and helps move me into her home with her and her fiance for about, I want to say a few months. I lived there for a few months. That's where I really got back on my feet. Not just financially, it was just loans, taking out more loans to live off of. But really, that was the emotional support for me also, of a close friend that I needed at the time, and a voice of reason who was like, hearing me, knowing that I was bitter for a reason because I had lived through something that was really challenging, but at the same time, encouraging me to, when I was ready, come back to it. to take my time and when I was ready to come back to it.
Perfect. Share with us what some of those thoughts were. Like, what were some of the, when it got to that dark space, whatever it was, like, if we can get raw about this,
Sure.
What were some of those thoughts that came up?
I wanted to give up chiropractic. I didn't like chiropractors. I had something against older chiropractors too, because or more experience, not age necessarily, but I think with experience comes age also. And I just felt very cheated, and I felt like what I was told I would be given, I wasn't. And I wanted to. I remember in tears in her kitchen, in my friend's kitchen, telling her I want to go back to Life West to share a different message with people. So I've been twice now, and that to me meant so much because it gave me an opportunity to share more of the struggle, or more of what I thought was a real life journey, and then also real expectations as to what somebody can expect coming out. But I was in a place where I honestly considered giving up chiropractic.
Mm-hmm. And you had just started, right?
Just started. I was literally 3 months.
Yeah, you're like a baby in it, and yet in school you were like just blowing through and having a great time and doing that stuff. What was the turnaround for you? Like, how did you turn around from that anger and that blame or whatever it was, possibly, and I hope you will allow me to say this, being a victim, whatever it might be in those spaces, right?
Yeah.
How did it turn around for you?
I think just getting my health back. When we get our health back, we start to enjoy life more. And health, as we know, doesn't just come in a physical form. I think mind is always first, right? And the body follows. And it was a lot of healing, like what you just said right there, with a transition into more of taking ownership for my actions, and then also believing in myself again, to know that I can do anything I want and anything I set my mind to. And it just took time and a lot of conversations and a lot of support and a lot of love from people around me to help reframe the thought process, for sure.
Yeah.
So Matt, I know this, we should probably save this for the end, but now I'm curious. So from what you just said, so what is your message, or how has the message changed? What is the message that you want to give the students now?
Yeah, that it's not an easy journey like this, and it's also not handed to you. Because I think my expectations as a student coming out was that I should be making, and this is a random number, right? But everyone, I think, kind of has it in their head, like, I should be making 6 figures right out of school. Well, why? And why 6 figures? And what skills do you have to contribute to a business? Because we hire on skills now. And I didn't see it at the time, but I didn't have any skills other than a technician adjusting at a basic level. It was just a very basic level. So I think that I can also share from a clinic owner standpoint of, look, a clinic owner is actually hiring on skill set, not how well you adjust. Because I think at School of Students, a lot of us try to get, which is amazing, to especially at Life West, become the best adjusters. I think they are the best adjusters out there. But there's so much more to owning a business, operating a business, managing a business, and it comes with a skill set. So that's some of the things I've shared as I've gone back was, look, don't even step into a building if you're just looking for money. I think it's the wrong box to be looking at, because I think that's what both parties many times are talking about: new patients and patient visits per week and revenue, which is good to track and look at, but that sure as hell isn't everything.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm gonna say something counter to what you just said.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe you did have the tools. You just weren't put on the field to be able to have them come out, right? Because you went into practice, you basically you had 3 months of being an associate, and then you had that year off of healing, and then you stepped foot into a practice, and it was in you. It just had to come out, right? And it was there,
Yeah.
But I my sense is that what you're talking about, and I love it, because we're talking about, there's like the mechanical stuff, the patient visits, the cost per patient, all the different stuff that's important on a business side.
Yeah, we look at that now.
Yeah, but the quantum side is really what I hear you saying. Yes. And that's the intangible that really grows a practice. That's the business aspect of the quantum. And I hold that as the give, do, love, and serve,
Yes, beautifully said too. And that's where we feel great going to bed at night and waking up in the morning. And that's that lasting purpose, right? If we never really lose that purpose, then that's it right there. Because as you start to accumulate more money and wealth, you realize also it doesn't feel like what you thought it would, at least for me. I'm like, I thought this is what I was looking for, but I guess it was just freedom, which I had from the beginning. It was just knowing how to balance that freedom with what I love in my work.
Yeah. You know, Mary, it's funny because we used to always say, right, our saying to ourselves, you know, to each other was, money doesn't buy you happiness.
Yeah.
You know, it just gives you more choices.
I love that saying.
And it doesn't mean that your
saying.
choices are going to be good choices, right? That could,
exactly. You can do good or bad with it. Yeah.
More opportunities, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. A lot more opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about what you did. You know, you moved into, you know, you're in your practice, you guys are booming right now. And obviously, you know, you did something, you know, to kind of have your practice, you know, start moving. You got in your heart space, you opened up your love bubble, like we like to call it, that lasting purpose bubble. But then you had, you know, other things behind it. What was some of the greatest, you know, I don't know, you know, things that you did to get yourself out in your community and to, you know, create the practice that you have?
So right there, getting myself out into the community, but in a new way this time. So in the way I was taught, it was through like a BNI group, which isn't a bad way to go, right? It gives you exposure to people, but when you see it for what it is, you're paying to be exposed to a group of people that you have no control over who they are. Then you're like, you know, I should reframe. There's a lot of reframing that happened, and just let me start my own network of people. So through the avenues that I enjoy personally. So I joined a sand volleyball team. That was the first thing I did actually when I moved here. I got new patients from that. They ended up becoming friends also. I'm trying to think in the very beginning. So I did 4 screenings ever in my own practice. I won't do any more. And not that screenings are bad, but I knew that'd be an easy way to get exposure in the beginning to bring people in. But then I didn't want to rely on that. So it was just going to every single event that I thought sounded interesting that I could. And then I used also Instagram as a networking tool where I would just communicate like I would in person with a like-minded person. And I would just ask them, hey, I love coffee. So I was like, hey, do you want to go get coffee? And, you know, link up. Like, I like what you're sharing online. Let's get to know each other with that. And I wouldn't talk about chiropractic at all. Yeah. But they always ask, because when someone likes you and they trust you, they want to know what you do and they want to know how they can help you. So and it takes a while, but it's like the faster you're willing to do it, the quicker it'll snowball. But it's hard to find that balance, because if you don't, you get into trouble. And that's where I did with my health the first time. And I told myself I'd never go there again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like keeping the balance, right?
Exactly. But it's always kind of tipping, right? We're never broken or fixed, but same in that aspect of our life. It's always a little bit, and it's still to this day for me, it's flirting with how far can I tip it with the work until I go the other way. So it's always there.
I really like what you said, Matt, because obviously you know, we'll get into this. You've used social media as a, you know, to become an influencer in your community, and there's other things that you've done around that. But what I really love that you just said was that you'd reach out to these specific people, you target them based on who you saw in your community on Instagram or wherever.
Yeah.
And you had a genuine, you know, curiosity and a genuine, you know, thirst to know who they were.
Yeah.
It wasn't about you sitting down saying, let me tell you what I do, yada, yada, and just spewing that same old line. It was like, you know.
But it started that way. And now that you mention it, it did start that way. So, I mean, I took curiosity, but it took a friend almost, I mean, he didn't physically smack me in the face, but with his words, he smacked me in the face. And he said, dude, nobody cares about chiropractic. Like, you got to be human. And it took a lot of almost mentorship, right, from friends who were also small business owners and who had more experience. Maybe they were 2 steps in front of me, but it was still 2 steps in front of me, that I could learn something from them and that we could grow together. And it's been really fun to see some of the businesses that started in such a special city like this in Austin, boom, or all of us boom together. Now we're like, oh, we're still big kids, but seeing it grow has been fun. And the fun aspect of it is it's never been more fun, honestly.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me of, Mary, because I think our daughter Lauren has done the same thing. She's got a niche practice in Denver on just pregnancy and pre and postnatal. That's really all she takes care of. And, it just reminds me of, it's like this day and age, your day and age, just day and age. It's all about having think tanks. That's what it really sounds like. You created an incubator, right, with other people, and you can sit down and talk about the businesses, and everyone just kind of like, they're not, I guess with the BNI groups, and my kids have been in BNI and have done great with them, but with the BNI, it's more about, okay, can I get someone from you if you refer people to so-and-so and da-da-da-da. And this sounds like it's more like, man, let's just get together and talk about how we can grow as individuals and what we bring to the table. And then naturally, organically, it happens, huh?
Yeah. And there was a line I remember, it was through Dr. Mo. She spoke at the December 2016 graduation. And she said a line that I'll never forget and that I really resonate with. She said, who we are as people always precedes who we are as chiropractors. Mm-hmm. And it takes a while to see that, right? But when you really, get out into practice, it is, we gravitate toward people. I think it was at Kevin Hart. I read his book. I think it's called I Can't Make This Up. Phenomenal book. So funny. But he said one of the gems from that book that I kept going back to and looking at was being a likable person. And he says that was a huge part of what got him his success, was like putting himself out there enough times to be in the right situations and then being a likable person. He had a few more things to it. And there's no real formula ever, but that was one of the big takeaways for me from his book. And I love that too. I think that's so true.
Well, Matt, you have that likability factor. Like it's like big time. Like I noticed that with the very first time I met you. But it's wild because listening to you talk, it's so opposite. When I graduated, it was like, just go out, everybody you meet, even in an elevator, just start spewing chiropractic out of your mouth. And it's interesting. That's why we do these Life by Life West episodes.
Yeah. That
your message is like, no, if you're a likable person, be genuine, connect with the person. And then it just happens, right? I love that word you use, genuine.
Yeah. It's like, and I think it works both ways, honestly, because I saw it work that way when I worked as an associate. So I know it works that way also. And I think that's the confusing thing to all of us, right? Is that there's so many magic formulas or right ways. And to me, this way feels better. And I think that's why, to speak to Dr. Ron, right, what you said when I was in Nebraska, it just didn't feel right to me. So maybe I did have some of the tools already there, but it just didn't feel right because it was a different way than the way I wanted to be doing it. And it shows through. Like I remember my conversion rate for reported findings was horrible because I felt like I was selling on everything and it wasn't coming from a genuine place. Now I'm not selling anything. My job's to educate, and it's your health. It's your decision. It's your time. It's your money. It's your energy. It's your choice.
Yeah. Exactly. So the lesson I'm getting is that, and I think it's so right on, everyone's different,
yes.
People can go out and do talks and bring in tons of people, and other people might not be comfortable doing that. People can just do social media and never even say a word and do really good with that. And then other people can be connectors. And it's like what I'm hearing is just find that which resonates with you or try different things. Because I think, because what you said was important, that you will thank, the office you're in Nebraska. Not saying it was wrong. You will thank them because you were able to see what maybe didn't work for you.
Yeah.
So that you could then move toward what does work for you, right?
Yeah. And I was trying those things when I moved to Austin, but it didn't fit the city because Austin's a very young city, but taking more, I'd say old school in a sense, systems into a really young city just wasn't a good fit. And the message didn't really resonate with a lot of people. But also most of our audience or most of our people that we take care of are in their 20s and 30s. 80% probably of who we see are millennials, which is incredible. I love it. And I don't care if they call me Matt, Dr. Delgado. Most people call me Dr. Matt, but there's some that, a good amount that just say Matt, and I'm okay with that. That's my name. That's the name I was given.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So share with us, obviously you made a presence in your community, right? And you've been doing, is Instagram like your main, avenue, and share a few, just a few nuggets on what you did around that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we're mostly referral based. So over half of all of our new patients come by way of referral still. But Instagram and YouTube both are big drivers for us. And I had so much resistance toward it in the beginning. I was the last of all my friends at Life West to get an Instagram. I didn't like it. I started the account that I'm using right now when I started my practice. So it's 3.5 years into existence. And it's just been a tool, right? It's like you were talking about earlier. It's not the only way to go, but it's been a really valuable tool to connect with other people in the community and to help put me in the right situations to where is led to some pretty fun things for me to do, from working with some of my favorite musicians to seeing some of my favorite, NFL athletes. And then same, like getting to partner with some really cool, fun brands in my city. So both of those have just been really good tools for us to utilize and to drive new patients in. Now both of them drive a good amount of new patients in for us every month, but it still takes consistency. Even when we're at this point, we can't just say, okay, we made it, we're done.
Right.
And Matt, what time frame, like how many hours do you spend on Instagram during the week?
Yeah, not a ton. I could be more efficient with it. If I wanted to outsource, we just outsourced our video editing, but we do a really raw one-cut video for our YouTube channel. And then we have our editor do like a little intro, like preview for it. So we don't spend hardly any time for YouTube. And personally, I don't do anything for it. I only, I'm in the room with someone adjusting them while there's a camera in the room. I said, I don't want to do any of it. So we have someone do that. But for Instagram, I post all of the things myself. It's not a ton of time. Some of the new, and things are always changing on that too. So you got to keep up with, right, like the trends, and then how you can be different also, I think really matters, because if you're trying to copy someone else's voice and what they're doing, good luck. But I think if you can develop your own voice and sense of who you are, and really that's what's building a personal brand too, then you can have some success with it in your community and knowing who your audience is. So I'd say not a lot, maybe 4 hours a week or 3 hours a week, not even on Instagram.
That is great.
Yeah.
And when we're going to flash your Instagram account so people can follow you. Same thing with your YouTube. We'll flash it on the bottom. I mean, I think it's important for people to follow, because that, like you said, not to copy, but just to get an idea. And, what's there today is going to be different, could be different, tomorrow or next week or next month or whatever, next quarter. So I think it's awesome. Like the unique factors, if you talk about like what's unique, about your office and how you got to where you were. I think one of them you just kind of touched on, right? You talked about education, right? And also I just want to talk about if you could share with us about influencers, you seem like you're an influencer in your community on that level. I mean, you have to take that in, because obviously you are, but obviously if you're an influencer, you're also connecting with other influencers, right? Yeah. So share with us.
Sure. I think the word's misunderstood, first of all. So even defining what it is anyone with influence. It doesn't have anything to do with follows. It doesn't have anything to do with likes, or right. A lot of times you'll hear that called vanity metrics, and they call it that because it's all just for what, right? But depends on what you're looking for. So even we've used influencer marketing, and all that means is utilizing somebody who has influence within a certain specific demographic. Mm-hmm. And it could be like you're talking about your daughter. For her, it could be someone who people go to for advice for pregnancy related things, right? So it depends what your niche is, what your market is, what your age, everything. It could be the example from the person I used influence. And there's a really good book on this. And I can't remember, Amanda Russell's her name. She's the one that taught me or helped me personally. She lives here in Austin. She just sold off another business. She's a really big name in that field, and she was the first one to teach an influencer marketing class here at University of Texas, Austin. It was the first accredited program in the country, and now she's actually out at UCLA also. So that's gold in itself right there, and it's like her textbook for the class, but it's really not a textbook. It's a good book for anyone to help learn more information about what influence is. So that was one of my resources, and that's something that if people enjoy reading, I'd highly recommend her book. Amanda Russell is a red cover. I'm blanking on the name, but it's something about influence. Yeah.
That's great. You know, and I think what you just said was important too, is because obviously you're going to go and meet these people just like on Instagram and other places, but you're going to meet the people who resonate with what you want to target, right?
Yeah.
So you might not be for yourself. You might not be like my daughter, like you said, might be, meeting people who have influence in the, in the pregnancy world or the pre or postnatal world. But, yours might be whatever. It doesn't matter. Volleyball might be this, might be that, whatever it is. I mean, I think that what it comes down to also is what you said earlier, that find what you like, find what you gravitate to.
Exactly. Because there's all the formulas out there, and it's so easy to get caught up in someone else's really good marketing, right? Where they're selling their systems of how they did it, but it could be so different from your city or your target demographic. And those are things that you don't always see from a distance, but it's, I think, really discovering, and mentorship is one of the ways that helped me discover what I even want or what I'm really going for. Because until I had a better understanding of that, I honestly bounced all over the place. My first year and first 7 months, I think I bounced all over the place. I did a lot of talks in the community, but without understanding why I was doing them. Was it to drive new patients? Was it to just get exposure? I did some corporate adjusting also. I actually went into Under Armour, their corporate office here downtown Austin. They have a beautiful space, and I adjusted a bunch of their employees. So I got into these avenues and I did it well, but it even took time to discover, what do I really want, or what should I focus on, right? They say that shiny object syndrome, like where the new thing comes up and we go chase it. And I did that for 7 months. And until I said, okay, I'm going to build a foundation financially and in the community with a stable office, and then I can do some of these other things for fun if I want, then I really started to boom once I focused on my office.
Yeah. And I think the lesson is, it's important for our audience to know that try these things. It's like, we can look at you, Dr. Matt, and go, wow, man, he really made it. And, and that, but, people don't understand the backstories a lot of times. And it's the backstories, it's the work, it's the blood, sweat, and tears. Like, you just can't look at someone's crops and go, those are the most beautiful crops. Like, they think it just dropped down from Mars, like
exactly.
someone had to turn the soil, and someone had to be out there in the middle of the rain. And, and it takes that work. But when you do it with love, and that's what I'm getting from you, when you do it with authenticity and really trying to find that, and we have to find that. That's something that people have to understand. So I love the journey. I love the journey. Yeah. Thank you for sharing and being raw with us too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. We're winding down, but we got a couple more questions we want to ask you.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the first question.
Okay.
What advice would you give to yourself as a chiropractic student?
It would be, I think, patience would be the biggest thing, because I wanted it as a student. I had an idea in my head that I should, right? It's the shoulds. Again, there's another book. I love books. The crossroads between should and must. Mm-hmm. But finding the patience to know that it's a marathon, not a sprint. I started off sprinting. I got burnt out. I had to reframe to figure out it's a marathon. And then even now, still telling myself, patience, because there's always the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love what you said, man. I love it. Mary's been helping me reframe some verbiage, in our household for 30 years, right? Even with our kids, we've tried to eliminate the word should from our vocabulary.
Yeah.
Because what should is like a judgment. It's like, you should do that, and I grew up in a household where that was the language. I mean, that was the language, even today, I've got a 95-year-old father, who, Mary and I love dearly, and his languaging is still there, which is, we accept that, but it's just interesting. So it's neat that you brought that up.
And
Go on.
I think those are the constraints, the shoulds, right? Those are the constraints. And that was what I just spoke on at Life West, was those constraints. And I followed those shoulds for me, and it took me into the worst possible box that I could ever be in. And that's where I developed that autoimmune. And it took me really discovering what was outside of that box for me, and getting to a place where I'm really more truly purpose driven now. And it looks a lot better.
I love it.
And
I love it.
Hopefully people take the message today from you of doing things that resonate with you. That's what I've gotten from you today. Just like, there's all this stuff you can do. Find what resonates with you.
Yeah. And be willing to make the mistakes. I mean, I know this, Doc. I know that in 20 years, you're going to look back, and because you said you didn't have a story before, like what got you into chiropractic, that those 3 months and then the year afterwards, of healing is your story. And that's probably what needed to take place to get you to where you are today. So there's no mistakes,
I was waiting tables, and I on my application I left out that I have a doctorate level education, because I knew that wasn't something they were searching for when they were hiring. So I put that I had a bachelor's, because I do, but I left off the other degree on purpose. And I just said, I'm not sure what I'm doing, but looking for a job.
You got humble, man. You went back, you got humble, and that's really what happened. Second question, same frame as Mary had, what would the Dr. Matt Delgado today, if we could go back in time, say to the Dr. Matt Delgado, who just was opening up or just starting, what advice would you give?
This is my favorite too. Have fun, in 2 words, and I'll elaborate a little bit, because if you just say it, it's like, oh, okay, well, so what? No, seriously, have fun. Don't be afraid to show people who you really are. Right. When we do, special things happen, really special things happen. There are a couple examples that I remember sharing on Instagram. It's like the inner child in me, when I finally started to share that, people loved it, because apparently they're human also. So they do similar things. I wasn't alone. So I filmed a video of myself and Dr. Scott, who works with me, running out into the rain, and we set up like a little marker and it was pouring rain, and we ran out, we filmed each other running out, touching the little marker and coming back. I cannot tell you how many messages I got from just the silly, fun things like that. Or when I first started, also, I bought a kayak from a patient, and I remember putting a picture up on my Instagram story and like drawing the water underneath the kayak, and like a kid's sketch, and drawing the sun out front. And I'm sitting in my business clothes in the kayak, like, who's with me, ready to go. Like those things, like having fun like that, and not being afraid to show who you are, to be silly or to be goofy, if that's who you are. Yeah. Being myself. Yeah. It took me a while to really be confident with being myself, because I thought I had to be this professional guy. So even my wardrobe has changed in practice. Over time, I'm stepping into who I am and more comfortable being. It's still, business casual, but we got polo shirts now instead of the button-up shirt. And I started with the button-up shirt and the tie, and my pants are chino pants now instead of, a dress pant. So it's getting more casual as we go, and it's who I am now.
I love it. Well, have fun. I mean, that's I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Matt, for just your honesty, and thank you for being a light out there for new chiropractors and for chiropractic. I think that anybody can take a ton of, there's people out there 30, 40 years of practice who needed to hear this. I know I need to hear that. The messages that you gave today are reminders for myself. And if I can't take these messages and be able to say, how can I adapt that to my life? Right. So thank you. Thank you for all that you shared today. Thank you for giving us your time and your talent. And thank you for your support of the college, because you are a big fixture at our college, and we appreciate you dearly. And that's what I'm going to close it up. Dr. Mary, any last words you want to share?
No, I was going to say the same thing. You gave such great information but also like and we've always loved you, but I just felt your journey. I felt like I went along with you on that journey, because we can all relate to having ups and downs, crashing, and then reinventing ourselves and rising again. It's just so cool to hear your story. We love you. You're just awesome.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed it, as always.
Love it. I love it. And to our listeners, thank you. Thank you for checking in with us. Thank you for sharing this message. Spread this to other folks. We're reaching about 4,000 to 5,000 people right now. Keep spreading it, keep sharing it. And it's a message that somebody will pick something up from. We just want to thank you for tuning into Life by Life West. We enjoy doing it, and we're doing it for a reason, and that's so that we can continue to give to our profession and allow all of you to grow and to become better at what you do and whatever level that is. So thanks. Until our next Life by Life West, the three, Dr. Matt, Dr. Mary, and myself will bid you farewell. We hope that you have a beautiful week or two, and keep loving and hugging those around you. Live your life from above down, inside out, and don't forget about lasting purpose: to give, to do, to love, and to serve from your own abundance. Okay? So until we come back, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.